Welcome to Special Stage and to our season review of the 2022 Protyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship. 7 rounds on some challenging and at times iconic closed public roads lay in wait for our crews at the start of the season, taking in England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And the action all kicked off back in March with the Tour of Epint.
7 stages awaited the crews then on the opening round of the season, and it would be Rory Bell and Max Freeman getting the ball rolling with some fantastic times on the board. Only the first time on asphalt in that car, and only the second time driving the Skoda in anger, full stop. Long-time championship protagonist John Stone was back again for 2022 in the VW Polo R5. Rhys Stoneman alongside this weekend, the pair lying second of our championship crews in the early stages. And it would be Steve Simpson and Patrick Walsh who round out the podium places by the midpoint of the day. They were just a single second back from Stone, clearly trying hard on the stages right from that very first green light. As were this pair, James Williams and Di Roberts. A high-speed spin on the opening stage, putting them down the order, so they were playing catch-up. But that is exactly what they did, managing to get some great times to reach the end of the rally with 3rd place on the championship podium. Mark Kelly and Neil Coleman would have a relatively trouble-free run, one of their best in fact, taking 2nd place at the first round. And there'd be no stopping that Skoda pair out in front. Rory Bell and Max Freeman putting in some unbeatable times, frankly, to win the rally by 44 seconds. John Stone and Rhys Stoneman would unfortunately for them miss out on a podium at this opening round. But they'd be happy with how the car went. A trouble-free opening round was a good way to start the season, and good to get some 4th place points on the board as well. Steve Wood and Dale Bowen would have a problem with their handbrake, which did lose them some time in the tighter places, but they do manage to take 5th place points from the opening round. Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead had won the Tour of Epint the previous year. Sadly for them, this time, there wasn't a repeat of that. They would be disappointed with 8th place, a couple of stalls on the start line not helping things. Meanwhile, fastest of our 2-wheel drive contenders over the rally were Hugh James and David Evans. Some spectacular driving leading to a V13 Class victory and the lead of the Escort Challenge. This would be helped in part by Darren Atkinson and Phil Sandham having to pull over on stage 3 to change a puncture, putting them out of the fight. Adrian Spencer and Mark Hewitt got the season off to a good start with victory in the V14 class in that Impreza WRC lookalike. And Jeff Glover and Keith Barker were making their 110th Asphalt Rally start, and they'd mark the occasion in style with a B11 class victory in that rear-wheel drive Astra. Lewis Gatt and Callum Young would have a few problems with the intercom, resorting to hand signals during the rally, but it clearly worked as the pair take the B10 Class win to start the season. No hand signals for Will Mains and Claire William, but there were a few brake issues on the Nova to contend with, but contend with them they did. They managed to get that sorted in the midday service, putting in the times over the afternoon and taking the B9 Class win. And all the way down from Aberdeen, Johnny McKay and his co-driver Michael Cruikshank would have a trouble-free day in the Fiesta ST to take the N3 Class victory. The second round of the championship moved north to the Jim Clark Rally, and this time on the borders of Scotland it would be James Williams and Di Roberts starting the rally off as they meant to go on, with some fast times through the dark in that Hyundai. Round 1 winners Rory Bell and Max Freeman weren't having the best of luck, that was fair to say. They lost time on the opening stages due to some issues with the Skoda, actually ending up 12th place on the leaderboard by the end of the opening night. Thankfully for Bell, those issues would be resolved before day 2. The pair could then push on and climb back up the results, or at least that was the plan. And they would eventually come out with 2nd place in the championship, allowing them to maintain an albeit slim advantage at the top of the standings after 2 rounds. With their 3rd place on round 1, and now a victory under their belts here at round 2. James Williams and Di Roberts were now closing in on the championship lead. Not that they'd be worried about that just yet. Celebrating their first victory of the season and a weekend that had gone exactly to plan. Steve Wood and Dale Bowen would have another good event. Better, in fact, as they'd end the event with 3rd. It wasn't a faultless drive with a couple of small mistakes, but it was job done. A good haul of points in the bag. And Mark Kelly and Neil Coleman would have another strong finish. Not quite the podium from last time out, but they do manage 4th place, giving them plenty of points to add to their tally at this early stage of the season. Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead have a fraught evening on the opening day. A number of small issues, along with catching cars, really set them up badly for day 2. They could only manage a 7th place finish this time out. Darren Atkinson and Phil Sandham, though, would claim their first V13 Class Win of the season, with maximum points in the Escort Challenge. A good strong run, seeing them putting some good points on the board from round 2. Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan would also have a good run in the B13 class on this round. Enough, in fact, to put them in the lead of the class for the season thus far. A similar story, another trouble-free run would ensure Jeff Glover and Keith Barker keep hold of the B11 class lead in the championship. They added this win from round 1 to their tally so far. Adrian Spencer, this time partnered by Ashley Trimble, would once again do enough to take the B14 class victory in the Impreza, making it 2 from 2 now. The 3rd round of the championship would stay in Scotland. This time, it was the Argyll stages, and the event got underway with a blast around the town of Dunoon. This, unfortunately, the last time that we would see Mark Kelly and Will Atkins after a massive crash in stage 4. They say you can't win a rally on these short stages, but you can certainly lose them. And that was almost the case for Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead, skidding to a stop on the opening stage, looking not to damage anything other than their times. But it would be Steve Wood and Dale Bowen enjoying the atmosphere here in Dunoon the most. They'd lead the rally after the first day in their Fiesta WRC, after a great start through the nighttime stages. There was frustration, somewhat self-inflicted for Wood and Bowen, though, that good fortune wasn't going to carry on into day 2. They make an uncharacteristic mistake, putting the car off the road. It wasn't a particularly damaging off, but the car would be going nowhere soon, and it was game over. Now, with a commanding lead of our championship contenders, it was David Henderson with Chris Lees alongside. They'd been 3rd overnight, but managed to overhaul a couple of places in front to take that top spot in the podium, even with a minute's penalty for hitting a chicane. To say this event had been dramatic would be a bit of an understatement, particularly for Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead. Their problems on day 2 would be a double puncture on stage 6, and as if that wasn't bad enough, it caused damage to the brake line, causing a rose joint to fail. Thankfully for them, they got it to service and were able to have a clean run through the afternoon to take a very good and damage-limiting 2nd place. John Stone and superstar co-driver Tom Woodburn weren't staying out of trouble either. They'd already had problems with the intercom on the Friday night stages, and day 2 would see the Legend Fires team putting the car off the road at the same place that Wood had done so in the morning. Thankfully, with some spectators this time, they helped to get it out and claimed that final step on the podium despite this mishap. Mark Holmes and Mark Perryman also had their first bit of bad luck in front of our cameras, putting the Fiesta S2000 off on the opening stage of day 2. They'd be going no further. Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan would extend their lead in the Escort Challenge and Class B13. Such a good performance, in fact, that they also took 4th place overall in the championship standings this time out. It had been a bit of an epic battle with Darren Atkinson and Phil Sandham, missing out on that place by just 4 seconds at the end of 2 days of grueling competition here north of the border. Still a good result, and especially for Phil on his birthday weekend. Ollie Hunter used this weekend to take the lead in the B11 class with a great drive in the Escort. A penalty for clipping a chicane on day 1 would cost them a better overall position, though, at the end of the day. And despite the lead in the championship standings for Hunter, it would be the B11 class victory in Argyll for Nathan Evans and Rhys Edwards in their Renault Clio Cup car. Jonathan Stepney and Anna Davies have a great run in their Peugeot 205 to take the V12 Class victory. Their second win from 2 starts so far this season, in fact, which of course gave them the lead of the class overall at this stage. V14 would yield a different winner this time around. Manx Rally crew Steve Orman-Smith and David Evans enjoying a good run in the Evo to take the class victory, as well as 6th overall in the standings. Class B9 also seeing a new winner, Simon Hunter and Howard Pridmore coming out on top of this round in the Quick Track sponsored Corsa. Johnny McKay and Michael Cruikshank were a little closer to home than their first class win of the season when it came down in Wales. And despite some issues with tyre choice on the Saturday stages, they managed to extend their lead in the class for the season so far.
Plenty of hot asphalt action so far then. The Argyle Rally really throwing a spanner in the works for many of our title contenders, meaning that the title was wide open as we crossed into the second half of the season. And for that, we headed across the water to Northern Ireland for the Down Rally.
Steve Wood boasts plenty of experience on Irish lanes and would use that to his advantage. He was out this time with Kenny Hull co-driving, and aside from an overshoot, it would be a faultless drive to take victory at the 4th round and become the 4th winner in as many events. You had to say at this stage it was looking good. John Stone's championship campaign had gone about as good as it could have. He was leading the standings now, and a second place at round 4 would just help to secure that position a little more. This weekend, out with Laura Connell in the co-driver's seat. Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead would have a strong run to 3rd. Not the best of starts to the rally though, when the bonnet came up over the big jump, smashing the windscreen, costing them over a minute by the end of the stages. B14 though would see another name on the winners list. Richard Clues and Carl Williamson taking class honours this weekend. Also closing the gap on current class leader Adrian Spencer after 4 rounds. Darren Atkinson and Phil Sandham would once again top the 2-wheel drive crews on the rally. The B13 class victory and maximum points in the Escort Challenge were theirs after a trouble-free run. The pair were now closing the gap on current championship leaders Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan, who didn't have the best of rallies themselves, hitting a bank on the first stage and damaging the steering on the Escort. That put them down the order for the rest of the event and, you might say, on the back foot.
Just be careful you haven't damaged any.
Jonathan Stepney and Anna Davies got themselves another Class B12 victory over in Ireland. It was looking good for the season now for the pair. Round 5 of the championship would see our protagonists back in Wales for Rally Ceredigion. And with the BRC back, it meant that we'd see the likes of Rory Bell and James Williams back out. And indeed, it will be Williams with Di Roberts back alongside, coming out of this round with maximum points, putting Di in the lead of the co-driver standings. But not only that, it would turn out this was enough to secure him the co-drivers championship title for 2022. Williams and Roberts would finish ahead of Rory Bell and Max Freeman. The Skoda pair managing second place on the event, but an ominous way back from our leaders on times. But despite those performances at the top, all eyes at this stage were on 3rd place. Steve Wood and Dale Bowen putting in a strong performance on Steve's local rally to get themselves enough points to take the lead of the series and knock the absent John Stone off that top spot for now. It had been a difficult championship campaign so far for Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead, and it was only going to get more difficult. They'd only make it through the first day, retiring with a drive shaft issue on day 2. Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan would once again top the timesheets in the Escort Challenge and B13. A great drive from the pair, as we were coming to expect, saw them extend their lead in both those categories, once again taking a good overall championship score as well in 5th. Will Mains and Emily Easton-Page would take their B9 class victory again this weekend. Another strong performance in the Nova to take 6th place in the overall standings as well. These Welsh lanes had taken their toll on our championship contenders, a number of them not finishing for various reasons, which of course meant that the points remained largely unchanged going into the final round of the series. We had a bit of a showdown up and down the leaderboard on our hands. Here we are, round 6, the season finale. And what a finale it would be. Our crews heading to the Isle of Man. A challenging 2-day rally standing in the way of them and their final championship positions. Will Maines and Aled Edwards would have problems throughout the rally. A throttle position sensor on the Nova costing them 6.5 minutes. But a fantastic fight back would eventually see them take the class victory for the event and the season. Ollie Hunter, co-driven by Dan May, had hoped to take the V13 Class Trophy this season, but retirement on this final round would see him drop down to 2nd on the points table. And that meant that even after retirement last time out, Lewis Gatt and Callum Young got the car to the finish of the rally to secure the V10 Class victory for the season, even with some clutch issues along the way here at the final round of the season. Paul and Julian Doroschuk once again claim the B11 Class Trophy after a good run in their Escort. Their first victory of the season, but a consistent finishing rate in the points, seeing them with a 10-point advantage by the end of the season. Jonathan Stepney and Aled Edwards may have already secured the trophy by this point for the season, but it was Mike Pugsley and Mark Clapworthy who picked up the class victory on the final round, making it 2 this season for the Escort pair, securing 2nd in the class this season. Steve Orman-Smith and David Evans had a great run on Steve's home rally, getting themselves on top of the points in the B14 class by the end of the championship campaign, finishing 6th of our championship contenders as well here at the final round. Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan made the trip over to the Isle of Man, leading the B13 class. They just needed victory to secure that. They ended the first loop of stages just 9 seconds off their target. Problems later in the day, though, would mean the car wouldn't restart, and they'd have to retire it before the end of the evening. If you're keeping up, you'll know that means it played into the hands of this man, Darren Atkinson. Phil Sandham alongside once again, and it took the pressure off them as well. They did have a small off-road moment themselves on stage 2, bending the steering, but thankfully after that, and the retirement of Cole, it would be a bit of a more straightforward run to the finish, taking the Escort Challenge trophy. Neil Roskell and Andrew Roughhead had been title contenders all season, but with the 3 Shires stages due to run as the penultimate round and subsequently being cancelled, it would take things out of their hands with just the final round remaining. All they could do now was do their best inside that car, and they did exactly that, leading the rally by the end of the first day despite the conditions being challenging with that amount of water on the stages. Their impressive advantage would continue through the 2nd day of competition, with the pair reaching the end of the rally with 1.5 minutes of a lead, showing that the title may have been taken out of their hands, but clearly they'd shown the pace of champions here on the asphalt, and this year at least they'd have to settle for 2nd place in those championship standings. John Stone came here as a contender for the championship title as well, co-driven by Laura Connell once again. But their progress was slowed a little with a few small mechanical issues on the Legend Fire's Polo R5. Despite this, they did manage to get themselves onto the final step of the podium at this final round, John securing himself that position on the championship leaderboard as well. In fact, finishing on exactly the same amount of points as Roskell, but it will be Roskell coming out on top of the pair based on a countback of previous results. Such a close fight right to the finish of this asphalt season. All of that meant, of course, that there was only one more place to fill on our championship title lineup, and it would be a good, tidy drive here on the final round, securing Steve Wood the title for 2022. Steve and co-driver Dale Bowen would have a misfire to contend with in the Fiesta WRC, but apart from that, the rally had gone to plan. And without getting too involved in the maths, they decided that they just needed to go out, push as hard as they could, and hope that it was enough. It was. They ended the event 2nd place, a 4-point advantage on the points table at the end of what had been a dramatic, grueling, and extremely exciting season.
With the Isle of Man rounding things off for the 2022 season, it was never going to be an easy end to the championship for our crews. Congratulations to Steve Wood, who did exactly what he needed to do in those Manx lanes to take the title. And of course to Di Roberts, who guided around some extremely quick drivers on some challenging stages to be our co-drivers champion for 2022. Registrations are now open for the 2023 championship season, with some fantastic events already lined up in the calendar by Paul Morris and his team, and some new and returning challengers already with their names on that waiting list. Wouldn't you want to be there too, hunting for a trophy in this exciting series next season? It all kicks off on the 26th of February here in Yorkshire for the East Riding Stages Rally.